When you ignore her, everything shifts. Curiosity sparks, her ego gets unsettled, and suddenly your presence feels valuable again. She questions herself, she tests you, she reconsiders the connection. If you remain composed, not chasing, she respects your boundaries. Ignoring isn't weakness, it's silent strength that demands attention. When you ignore a woman, the very first reaction you stir within her is curiosity. She becomes intrigued because something in the dynamic has shifted. People naturally crave what they can't easily have, and when your attention, which was once freely given, suddenly becomes scarce, it instantly raises questions in her mind. She starts to wonder why. What changed? Did she do something wrong? Is your focus somewhere else? That curiosity doesn't just float on the surface, it grows deeper with every moment of silence. Attention, when consistent, often loses its impact. When you are always available, always responding, always chasing, your presence can be taken for granted. But the moment you step back and create space, it forces her to notice the gap you leave behind. That empty space is powerful because the mind hates uncertainty. She begins to fill in the blanks herself, imagining scenarios, replaying past interactions, and trying to decode the sudden difference in your behavior. The irony is that you may not even be doing anything intentional. Your silence alone speaks louder than words ever could. Curiosity works like a magnet. The less you reveal, the more she wants to uncover. By ignoring her, you remove predictability, and this unpredictability is what keeps her engaged. The truth is, mystery is attractive. When she can no longer read you, she becomes more invested in trying to understand you. She might check your social media more often, analyze your replies, or even bring up casual questions just to see what's going on in your world. This shift from certainty to curiosity creates a powerful pull toward you. There's also a psychological element at play. Human nature often desires validation, and when that validation is withheld, it creates a form of tension that begs to be resolved. If you've always been giving her reassurance through attention, then suddenly ignoring her disrupts that cycle. She feels the absence of validation, and it pushes her to take action. Instead of you chasing her, she begins to seek you out. This is how curiosity transitions into effort from her side. But what makes this so effective is that it's not about manipulation, it's about balance. Ignoring her doesn't mean being cold, rude, or disrespectful. It simply means you're not available at every call. You're not constantly pouring energy into someone who hasn't earned it, and you're focused on your own life. That shift in energy makes her curious because it forces her to recognize that your attention is valuable. It isn't free, it must be respected. The shocking thing is how quickly curiosity can grow into attraction. Once she realizes you're not orbiting around her, she starts to notice you differently. She sees your independence, your self-control, and your ability to walk away if you're not valued. That silent shift, sparked by ignoring, creates a level of intrigue that words could never achieve. When you pull back your attention, something subtle yet powerful happens inside her. She begins to question her value in your world. At first, it may feel like a simple silence to you, but for her, that silence is loud. She notices the absence of your calls, your texts, your energy, and she can't help but compare the present moment to how things used to be. That comparison immediately triggers self-reflection. She starts asking herself, why isn't he responding the way he used to? Did I do something wrong? Has he lost interest? Am I not enough? These questions don't come from weakness. They come from the human need to feel significant in someone else's life. Attention is a form of validation. When you gave it freely, it reassured her of her importance. But when you step back, that reassurance disappears, and she is left with an uncomfortable uncertainty. Suddenly, she is forced to evaluate her actions, her effort, and her role in the relationship dynamic. She might replay recent conversations in her head, wondering if she said something that pushed you away. She might analyze the tone of her last message or her last reaction to you. This constant mental replay is her mind's way of trying to figure out where she stands with you. What makes this so impactful is that many women are not used to having their value questioned in a relationship dynamic. Especially if she is used to being pursued, the shift feels jarring. It shakes her sense of security because now she has to confront the possibility that she is no longer the center of your attention. And the moment she begins to doubt her position, she starts to crave the very validation you once gave. That craving can transform into action. She may reach out more, soften her tone, or even try to impress you in subtle ways, anything to regain the value she feels she might be losing. This self-questioning also reveals to her how much she truly values you. When everything was consistent, she might have overlooked your importance. But when you withdraw, she suddenly realizes that your presence wasn't ordinary, it carried weight. The space you created highlights just how much energy you brought into her life. This is when she begins to evaluate not only herself, but also what she may have taken for granted. The beauty of this process is that it's not about punishing her, it's about shifting the balance. You're no longer handing over validation without thought. Instead, you're letting her see that your attention is not something she can assume will always be there. She has to reflect, adjust, and step up if she wants to keep it. And in that space of self-questioning, something powerful happens. Respect begins to grow. Because when she realizes that you are not desperate for her validation, she is forced to recognize your worth and in turn reassess her own. When you stop giving her the attention she is accustomed to, it doesn't just create curiosity, it stirs her ego. Most women, especially those who are used to being pursued or admired, carry a silent confidence that your presence will always be there. They believe you'll respond, you'll chase, you'll reassure. The moment you don't, the ego feels threatened. Suddenly, she is confronted with a reality where she is not the center of your world, and that realization shakes her sense of control. The ego thrives on validation. It feeds off the idea that others will prioritize it, protect it, and keep it satisfied. When you ignore her, it feels like a direct challenge to that comfort zone. Instead of feeling secure, she feels unsettled. She may not show it outwardly, but internally, questions arise. Why isn't he giving me the same energy? How dare he pull back? Does he think he can live without me? These are not questions of the heart, they are questions of pride. This is where you start to notice small changes in her behavior. She might become more reactive, giving you attitude over small things, not because she truly cares about those things, but because her ego needs to provoke you into re-engaging. She may post more on social media, not for fun, but to grab your attention. She may suddenly bring up your absence or make sarcastic comments, all as a way to test if she still has that control over you. Every one of these actions is ego-driven, not love-driven. But here's the twist. The ego doesn't only fight back, it also adapts. When you don't feed it with your constant attention, it is forced to adjust to the new reality. That adjustment often makes her behave in ways she wouldn't normally, just to regain that feeling of importance. She may try to dress differently, talk differently, or even act more caring than before, not necessarily out of genuine change, but because her ego can't tolerate the idea of losing its place in your world. This triggered ego can actually work in your favor if you remain composed. If you react emotionally, chase after her, or explain yourself unnecessarily, you give her ego the validation it craves. But if you stay grounded, unbothered, and focused on yourself, her ego begins to lose power. She realizes she can't manipulate your attention, and that realization forces her to see you with new respect. You've shown her without words that you are not controlled by her moods, her games, or her silent expectations. What's shocking is how quickly a triggered ego can turn into a chase. The very person who was used to being pursued begins to pursue. The same woman who thought you would always be there starts to feel anxious about losing you. That shift doesn't happen because you begged, explained, or pleaded. It happens because you stood firm, ignored when necessary, and let her ego face discomfort. In that discomfort, the balance of power shifts, and she learns that your presence is not a guarantee, it's a privilege. When you ignore her, one of the most predictable reactions is that she will begin to test you. These tests are not always obvious, but they are intentional. She wants to see if your silence is real, if your discipline can hold, or if it's just an act. At its core, her testing is about control. She wants to know if she still has power over your emotions. The first kind of test usually comes in the form of attitude. She might suddenly give you short, cold replies or throw in a sarcastic remark to provoke a reaction. She's not truly angry. She's measuring your patience. If you respond with frustration, she wins. If you stay calm and composed, she realizes you're not easily shaken. That realization alone shifts how she views you. Sometimes the tests take the shape of silence. She may stop texting or purposely delay her responses, waiting to see if you'll break and chase her again. This is a classic move, and many men fall into it by panicking and overcompensating. But the one who passes the test is the one who stays centered, showing her that you don't need her constant communication to feel secure. That steadiness communicates strength louder than any words. Other times, she may test you through jealousy. She might casually mention another guy or post something suggestive online, knowing you'll see it. The goal isn't necessarily to be with someone else, it's to measure your reaction. If you become insecure, blow up her phone, or demand answers, she knows she can still control you. But if you remain unfazed, she's forced to confront the fact that you're not emotionally dependent on her validation. That makes her curiosity and attraction grow. Her tests may also come in subtle ways. She might ask questions that seem innocent, like, "Why didn't you text me yesterday?" or "Were you too busy for me?" These aren't simple questions. They are probes designed to uncover whether your distance is genuine or temporary. She's looking for cracks in your discipline, a sign that she still has the ability to sway you with guilt or pressure. Passing these tests requires calmness and clarity, never defensiveness. The interesting thing is that testing isn't necessarily a bad sign. It often means she still cares. If she truly didn't value you, she wouldn't bother testing at all. Her effort to challenge you is proof that she feels something and doesn't want to lose the hold she once had. But the outcome of these tests determines how she perceives you going forward. If you remain firm, she begins to admire your strength. If you fail, she loses respect, even if she doesn't admit it. Testing is her way of protecting her ego while trying to understand you. By ignoring her and maintaining composure through her provocations, you send a clear message. Your worth does not depend on her reactions. That message forces her to see you differently, not as someone she can control, but as someone she has to respect. When you ignore her, what she begins to notice most is not your silence, but the strength behind it. Most people cannot handle being ignored. They panic, over-explain, or rush to justify themselves. But when you stay calm, steady, and unbothered, it reveals a level of self-control that is rare, and she sees it clearly. Strength in this context isn't about physical dominance or loud gestures. It's about emotional discipline, the ability to withhold when every part of her expects you to give in. She observes how you don't react to her provocations. She may try to trigger you with sarcasm, coldness, or even attempts at making you jealous. But when you remain composed, she recognizes that your emotions are not so easily swayed. This kind of restraint commands respect because it separates you from the majority who would have crumbled under the pressure of her tests. Instead of running back to her validation, you stand firm in your independence. That strength leaves a lasting impression. She also notices how your focus shifts inward. When you ignore her, not out of spite, but out of prioritizing yourself, she sees a man who values his time, his growth, and his peace. Instead of chasing, you invest in yourself. Maybe you spend more time on your goals, your work, your fitness, or your passions. To her, this signals that your world does not revolve around her. It never did. And that realization both intrigues and unsettles her. A man who cannot be consumed by her is a man she cannot easily control, and that strength forces her to look at you differently. Another aspect she observes is your patience. Ignoring her without breaking demonstrates endurance. Most people seek instant gratification. They want immediate attention, immediate answers, immediate validation. But by holding back, you show that you are not desperate for quick rewards. Patience is a form of strength that women notice deeply because it reflects long-term thinking, stability, and maturity. When you don't rush to fix or chase, she recognizes that you operate on your own timeline, not hers. And with that strength comes mystery. She wonders how you can remain so unaffected. She questions why her usual strategies don't work on you. That mystery keeps her thinking about you even more. And the more she thinks, the more she feels pulled toward you. Strength, when quiet and consistent, creates a magnetic presence. You don't have to announce it. She feels it in the way you carry yourself without her validation. What's shocking to her is that your strength exposes her own vulnerabilities. She realizes that she is the one emotionally reacting, overanalyzing, and questioning while you remain centered. That imbalance flips the dynamic. Instead of you being the one proving your worth, she now feels the need to prove hers. By observing your strength, she begins to respect your boundaries, admire your discipline, and value your presence in a way she never did before. When you ignore her, a point inevitably comes where she begins to reevaluate the relationship. At first, she may think your silence is temporary, a passing phase. But when it continues and she sees that you are not rushing back to fill the void, she is forced to look at the bigger picture. She starts asking herself questions she might have never considered before. Have I taken him for granted? Have I really given as much as I've received? What role have I played in pushing him away? This kind of reflection doesn't come from comfort. It comes from the discomfort your absence creates. The human mind naturally seeks balance. When one person gives too much and the other doesn't reciprocate, the dynamic becomes lopsided. By ignoring her, you shift that balance back. Suddenly, she is no longer in the position of being endlessly pursued. She's in the position of evaluating how much she has invested. This reevaluation often reveals uncomfortable truths. She realizes she may not have shown appreciation for your consistency. She may notice that she dismissed your efforts because she thought they would never stop. But now that they have, she is left to confront the reality that your presence was not permanent. It depended on her valuing it. This stage can stir a mix of emotions in her. She might feel regret for not recognizing your worth earlier. She might feel guilt for the time she took without giving. She might even feel fear, the fear of losing someone who has demonstrated independence and strength. These emotions compel her to analyze whether she has truly contributed to the relationship or simply relied on your persistence. When she reevaluates, she also redefines what the relationship means to her. Was it just comfort? Was it genuine connection? Was it a game of attention that she expected to always win? Ignoring her removes the noise and forces her to answer those questions honestly. And in that process, she begins to understand the true value of what you brought into her life. This isn't about making her feel guilty. It's about letting her see reality without the constant buffer of your attention. Without your validation softening the edges, she can finally see where she fell short. That clarity can be shocking because it strips away illusions. She realizes that your energy was not an endless supply, and if she wants to keep it, she must respect it. The most powerful part of this stage is that it shifts responsibility onto her. Instead of you proving yourself, she now has to decide what she's willing to give. She starts considering whether she should step up, make changes, and show more effort. Ignoring her doesn't push her away. It forces her to measure how much she truly values the connection. And if she realizes she doesn't want to lose it, she will find herself recommitting with more sincerity than ever before. When you ignore her long enough, there comes a moment where her curiosity, her ego, and her reevaluation all collide, and she begins to take action. This is the stage where she may try to win you back. At first, it may be subtle, a random message, a casual call, or a simple, "Hey, how have you been?" It seems light, but beneath it lies a deeper motive. She is reaching out to test the waters, to see if the door is still open, to see if you'll respond with the same energy you once gave freely. Her attempts often grow stronger when she realizes you are not chasing her. She might start putting more effort into how she looks when you see her, suddenly becoming warmer, more affectionate, or more thoughtful in her words. This change doesn't come from nowhere. It's her way of trying to restore the connection and reclaim the position she once held in your life. She notices that your attention isn't automatic anymore, and that recognition pushes her to put in the effort she may have withheld before. Sometimes her effort to win you back appears in her tone. A woman who was once cold or dismissive may suddenly soften, speaking with kindness or using playful words again. She might bring up old memories, remind you of good times, or show interest in the things you're doing now. These are not random gestures. They are deliberate attempts to pull you back into her orbit, to remind you of the bond you shared, and to convince you to re-engage. She may also try to appeal to your emotions by showing vulnerability. She might hint that she misses you, that she feels different without you, or that she regrets how things turned out. Vulnerability is often a powerful tool because it shifts the dynamic. It shows you a side of her ego letting down its guard. But even then, it's important to remember, these words only surface because she feels the weight of your absence. Ignoring her has made her realize that she is no longer guaranteed your presence, and that fear of loss motivates her to act differently. On another level, she may compete for your attention. If she senses you are focused on your goals, your work, or even your peace, she will want to be part of that world again. She may suggest spending more time together, offering support, or showing up in ways she hadn't before. What's shocking to her is that the man she thought she could always count on to chase her is now the one she feels compelled to chase. This effort to win you back is proof that your silence had impact. By stepping back, you gave her the space to realize what life feels like without your energy, and that realization compels her to fight for it again. She understands now that your attention is not a gift she can take for granted. It's something she must earn, respect, and value if she wants to keep it. When you ignore her in the right way, not out of bitterness but out of self-respect, you teach her something she may not have learned before. Your boundaries matter. At first, she may resist them, trying to push, test, or pull you back into her frame. But over time, as she realizes you don't bend under pressure, she begins to respect the invisible lines you've drawn. This respect doesn't come because you demanded it. It comes because you demonstrated it through your actions. Boundaries are a reflection of how much you value yourself. If you're always available, always giving in, always compromising just to keep her happy, You silently send the message that your needs are secondary. But when you pull back, when you withhold your time and attention until she values them properly, you show her that your life, your peace, and your priorities are not negotiable. That unspoken message forces her to look at you differently. She realizes you're not a man she can simply walk over or manipulate with moods. You are someone who stands on his own ground, and that ground must be respected if she wants to remain in your life. What shocks her most is that these boundaries don't push you further away. They make her draw closer. Women may test limits, but deep down, they admire the man who has them. It shows strength, confidence, and self-discipline. When you don't allow her to cross certain lines, whether that's with disrespect, inconsistency, or taking you for granted, she understands that you are not afraid to walk away, and that possibility changes how she treats you. She also begins to measure her own behavior against your standards. If you've made it clear through action that you won't tolerate constant disrespect, she adjusts. If you show that your time is valuable, she thinks twice before wasting it. If you demonstrate that your energy goes only where it's appreciated, she starts putting in more effort to meet you halfway. Without you saying a single word, your boundaries reshape the way she interacts with you. Respecting your boundaries also creates balance. The dynamic shifts from one-sided effort to mutual recognition. She no longer assumes she holds all the control. Instead, she realizes that keeping you requires effort, consideration, and respect. That realization changes her tone, her actions, and her commitment. She now understands that your presence is earned, not owed. In the end,